Now, there are a couple of management tools that I wanted to go over that are going to show up on the exam. One service is called AWS Config, and that allows you to audit and assess and evaluate the configuration of your AWS resources. It's very useful if you happen to be implementing ITIL and you're struggling with the configuration management portion of ITIL. AWS Config is a really neat service for you. It creates a baseline of various configuration settings and files on systems and then tracks variations against that baseline over time. So if I were to go out on my Linux system and make an entry into the fstab file, for example, then that could trigger an alarm or something to occur that notifies somebody that, hey, there was a change on this. And if I made that change without following the proper processes, then I could probably get in trouble. So ordinarily that would be very difficult to detect manually, but AWS Config automates that. We can also create AWS Config rules that check resources for certain conditions. And if those conditions aren't met, we can flag that resource as being non-compliant. So some examples of config rules is backup enabled on RDS, or is CloudTrail enabled on this AWS account, or are EBS volumes encrypted? And so we can set up these rules that would continually monitor all the resources in AWS and let us know if anything is out of compliance. Another useful tool is called OpsWorks. It's really just a managed instance of either Chef or Puppet, and those are two very popular automation platforms. And if you know anything about Chef and Puppet, you can do all sorts of stuff as far as managing your infrastructure and your landscape, from upgrades to deploying code to setting backups or configuring config files. OpsWorks has three different offerings. One is Chef Automate, one is for Puppet Enterprise, and the other is OpsWorks Stacks. Now, OpsWorks for Chef Automate and Puppet Enterprise are just fully managed hosted versions of those platforms. So if you currently use those on-premise, then it makes a whole lot of sense to use a version of these on AWS. Now, OpsWorks Stacks is an AWS creation, but it's compatible with Chef recipes. And it uses this embedded Chef Solo client that gets installed on your EC2 instances to execute those recipes. And OpsWorks Stacks also supports on-premise servers as well, as long as they have the agent installed. Now, stacks are just collections of resources that are needed to support a service or an application. Layers represent the different components of the delivery hierarchy. So, for example, a data layer, middleware layer, and web layer. And EC2 instances, RDS, these are examples of layers. And you can put them all together in a stack. And once you do that, the stacks can be cloned, but they can only be cloned within the same region. And although OpsWorks is a global service, when you create a stack, you must specify a region, and that stack can only control the resources in that region. For example, we can't manage an EC2 instance that was created in a European region from an OpsWorks stack that was created in a US region.